Welcome to I Love This Thing So Fricking Much, a podcast about passion. My name is Sophie Katz, and today I am joined by James Hafel, a film school alum who does not work in the film industry. Welcome to the show, James.
Thanks for having me. I was still laughing at my own intro because it makes me laugh so much.
Oh, good. Thanks for being here. So Here is how this works. James will have 3 minutes to talk about something that he loves. This can be a person, place, thing, concept, activity, anything he wants. Our only requirement is that he loves it wholeheartedly and wants to tell us why. Are you ready, James?
Yes, I am.
All right. Got my timer here. Now, what do you love so freaking much?
Man, I love Atlantis, The Lost Empire so freaking much. And I think I should start by saying that it's a movie that feels epic and truly epic in so many ways. The directors, Gary Truesdale and Kirk Wise, whose previous efforts, Beauty and the Beast and Hunchback of Notre Dame in Atlantis, finally proved without a doubt that they were Disney's best visual directors. From the opening scene to the Leviathan battle to the finale with the balloon and the volcano, so much of this movie is just visually stunning. The duo are masters of scale, and the fact that they did everything in this movie with animation proves that their mastery of it as a medium. And since I mentioned it, I want to go more in depth on the Leviathan battle because it's an incredible action scene by any standard. It's tense, it's snappy, and especially by Disney standards, quite violent, actually. There's a high body count and a lot of destruction, and all of it is underwater, which even adds to the spectacle. And the level of terror the Leviathan instills even in adults is a testament to the craft of it. Not once in that seems to feel like the humans have a chance, but somehow they make it by the skin of their teeth. And I also want to talk about my other favorite scene in the movie, which is Kita's transformation scene. It's a perfect showcase for the unseen star of the movie, which is James Newton Howard's beautiful score. It's mesmerizing and complements the images perfectly, and especially how it cuts to low murmurs as Kita rises and builds more and more as she eventually reaches the crystal. And yet again, it feels like Truesdale and Wise's epic visuals that feel both massive and both intimate at the same time. It's so beautiful, and it always gives me goosebumps. And speaking of Kita, oh my God, Kita! She's the best Disney princess by a long shot, and the fact that she's actually a princess and becomes a damn queen by the end of the movie. For another thing, she's an amazingly capable character. She's a warrior whose only limit is the fact she doesn't have a gun. But really, her true power is her love for her people and her family. Like, her first instinct when she sees Milo is to heal him, and she cares most about what her people have lost at the hands of her father, but she still loves her father and understands his choices. And she has a vision for Atlantis that she knows how to achieve, which is with the right key to do so. And in the sequel she does, but more on that later. On top of that, she's voiced by Cree freaking Summer, who's one of my all-time favorite voice actors. She's a legend, and she always plays the coolest characters in whatever she's working on. And she's not the only legend in the cast. Freaking Leonard Nimoy plays her father. James Garner plays Rourke. Corey Burton plays Mullen. Michael J. Fox brings his boyish talents to Milo. And everyone else in the cast is perfect for their characters. It's easy to see that this voice cast has really influenced the character's eventual animation, from sweet, snappy movements led by Phil Morris's delightful performance to Audrey's smooth and sassy but capable swagger led by Jacqueline Obrador's fantastic portrayal. It's a testament to how animation is a collaboration between voice actor and animator without ever having met in most cases. But it's also a testament to why original stories are best for diversity, because no one will throw up a stink about, quote, forced diversity in the cast of original characters. And this movie is very diverse for diverse Disney standards, and no one talks about that, and I'm baffled as to why to this day. But I want to jump back to Milo because he represents one more thing I love about this movie. It's unashamedly nerdy. From the fact that they hired the linguist who developed Klingon to develop the Atlantean language, and they hired Mike Mignola of Hellboy famous production designer, shows just how much the people making this film are nerds, and with taste, I might add.
Go ahead and finish your thought.
Okay. But I guess ultimately this movie encompasses, I think, everything this world could have had in a better timeline, and it's absolutely gorgeous synthesis of 2D and 3D animation that everyone involved brought their A game to. I think it encompasses everything great about this underappreciated era of Disney.
That's wonderful. Thank you for telling us about Atlantis, The Lost Empire today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to catch your breath a moment there.
Yep.
Tell me about your experience first seeing this movie. Was it in theaters? Was it at home? What was that like for you?
I feel like it must have been at home because I can only remember watching it on like VHS tapes on the old VCR that my parents or grandparents had. I took the VHS back and forth between houses. So yeah, it's just it's a movie that's like stuck with me for most of my life. So
did it just immediately hit you that you were seeing something incredible?
I don't remember it being that way, but like it's a movie I've always gone back to, and like as I've gotten older and started to like see the broader scope of like, you know, what Disney movies are appreciated and which ones aren't, it's always been like nagging to me that like no one seems to really appreciate this movie that much.
Definitely. And I like that you use the phrase broader scope there because I think you could apply that to the movie itself. Was in when you're talking about it, you mentioned all these different things that you liked about it. You like the visuals, you like the music, the characters, the overall nerdiness of it. It just seems like this film has a little bit of everything.
It really does.
Can you talk a little more about the nerdiness of it? That was sort of at the end of the talk. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, it's mostly just that like Milo's knowledge is like the most valuable resource in the first half of the movie because everyone depends on him to survive and reach safety. But it also takes care of the show the dark side of unrestrained pursuit of knowledge, which in this case is knowledge tainted by greed, because that's the entire second half when the crew betrays him and like shows that they actually all they care about is money, and like it basically becomes a narrative about how knowledge can enable colonialism if it's not checked and not and like you don't like go you don't have completely pure intentions going in. So
Hmm. Yeah,
it's
Milo's he's not, as you mentioned, he's a nerd, and it's his knowledge that it's like getting them as far as they are.
mhm,
Even though you might think you need someone a little more action focused, because it's the more action focused people who end up causing the trouble in the end.
exactly. So
You mentioned that original stories are the best for diversity. You want to talk a little more about that?
yeah, because I mean the thing about adaptations is that everyone has a picture of an adaptation in their head that every screen adaptation, like, the only person who's going to be satisfied with that most likely is going to be the director of it or the writer, one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
And so that always brings expectations to the story that will ultimately make the response to that for better or worse. And the problem with a lot of stories, especially ones that get adapted a lot, is that they're very white, and
Yeah.
that's just all. That's there's no other way to sugarcoat that. So I can see from like I don't agree with the perspective, but I can see the perspective that like oh, people are putting stuff in here that wasn't here to begin with, and I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. But that's why original stories are best for telling diverse stories, because no one has any expectations about those when they go to, in this case, watch them, because they've never seen it before, so they just accept it at face value, and therefore they don't like bring any biases to it necessarily.
You mentioned the sequel before. You want to talk about what the sequel's like to Atlantis: The Lost Empire?
Yeah, it's so there's gonna be some spoilers, but like it's basically like they were gonna make a TV series, and these were kind of like 3 episodes that they were had in production, but eventually they scrapped it because Disney thought it treated Atlantis like a failure, but it wasn't. But they eventually just took those episodes and combined it into a movie with a little bit of like extra stuff in between to connect the stories. But ultimately, what ends up happening at the end is that Kida comes into possession of this ancient Atlantean spear that contains a lot more power and has a big hunk of the crystal at the end of it, and she uses it to raise Atlantis above the surface. And what I really like about the sequel is that it just pays off a lot of sort of the colonialist narrative that was at the beginning in the first movie. Like, it's not the central focus, but it's just kind of like it shows Kida kind of growing into herself more as like a queen and a leader, and ultimately gaining the confidence to like see through with the vision that she hints at the beginning of the movie, which is like restoring Atlantis to like its full greatness and bringing it back to the world to like show how Atlantis is a civilization that still is relevant.
Yeah, there's only so much that you can really accomplish in a less than 2 hour movie, storytelling
Mm-hmm.
wise. So it sounds like they had the opportunity to tell a little more than they originally got to.
Yeah, it was nice. It's nice to watch. It's a good sequel. It's not. It's like it's a Disney sequel, direct to video sequel, so they're never like as good as the original in most cases, but it's still a good sequel, and they have the entire voice cast back, which makes it a lot better.
Oh, that is
So,
nice. You don't always get the original voices back.
yeah, I think actually I don't think they got Michael J. Fox back, but everyone else came back. So,
Oh.
oh,
Well, is there
yeah.
anything that you don't like about Atlantis: The Lost Empire? And if so, how do you handle that?
I think like I mean one thing that I just realized recently is that the VHS copy that I had was like it was edited so that would fit in a full screen 4:3 aspect ratio, but the original movie was actually made in like 13 by in like I can't think of the other aspect ratio, but like the like normal movie aspect ratio. So when I watched it on Disney Plus recently, I realized that the version I had always seen had been edited in a different way, and like the framing was a lot smaller. So watching it on Disney Plus, I'm like, okay, some of these edits that I really liked in the original VHS copy that I saw are not here anymore, and I
Huh.
don't know how to feel about that.
Like, is
But
it a
that's not,
matter of like what you can see on the screen at a given time?
yeah, because like sometimes in the frame they've like for the VHS version they cut a certain portion of the frame so that only one like character could be seen at any given time, just because of the limits of like how wide they could make the frame. And it like some of the cuts between characters, I thought that it added a little something to the movie. But then when I watched on Disney Plus, I was like, huh. But seeing this all happen in one frame is like, it's different to me. But I can't. That's not really a fault of the movie. It's just more a fault of like, you know, limitations of the VHS format, I feel like.
Yeah, I find that really interesting, especially since this movie was such a technological marvel, like incorporating the 2D and 3D elements with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to see how what in what form has it survived, and maybe even as it's changed, maybe the changes were good in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, like it's I mean, it's still great. It's also better in some ways to see it like in the original aspect ratio on Disney Plus, just because it's nice to be able to like, especially the bigger, grander scenes like the Leviathan battle and the finale. Like, it's really cool seeing action take place, and also some of the there's also some character reactions that are like some of the background characters have funny reaction shots that or funny reactions that got cut off by the aspect ratio change. So it's fun to to see those in the background and go. So it's just little things like that, but yeah, it's just a very different. It's watching a very different movie in some cases, I think.
It sounds like you got the opportunity to see this movie as though you're seeing it completely new, even though you've seen it a million times before.
Yeah, but I appreciate everything about it. So,
James, thank you so much for telling us about something you love today.
yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
Good, good. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. If you'd like to learn more about Atlantis the Lost Empire or our guest, James, you can find his social media information in the episode description. And don't forget to use the hashtag #LoveThisThingCast to tell us about the things you love. I Love This Thing So Fricking Much is a production of Through the Window Media. This episode was directed by Sophie A. Katz and edited by Melissa Block. You can find us at Through the Window on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. That is THROU, the window, at all those social media sites. Be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon.